In today's LEGO City update, I'll be focusing on the storytelling throughout the city. Also, towards the end of the video, I have quite a big surprise for you. I'm really stoked for that. My brother and I have been working on something quite big over the past months. First of all, what I'm starting off with right now is contouring and outlining the rock face that now enters the water. This will be this sort of bay where I want to continue the mafia story. As you know, I have this whole operation with the counterfeit money printing going on, and this will be the area where the counterfeit money will now be exported into the world via small ships. When it comes to the building techniques of the rock face, I've once again switched it up a bit. Some of the slopes I've used are built in normally, and others I've angled to the side using brick modified, so I have a few studs remaining. This is something I always like, to have a bit more structure added to this otherwise boring and plain rock face. When it comes to the water, it's basically the same as always. The main area is tiled with trans light blue tiles, and towards the rock face where the waves are crashing, I'm using trans clear plates. I've decided to make the vegetation a bit more dense in order to hide all the storytelling going on in this bay, because as you know, when our counterfeit money printing operation is going on, this, of course, is something that really benefits them if they can hide their activities in between the rocks and the plants and bushes and so on. This is also the first guy of the mafia who is currently carrying money towards the boat in order to then export it to another port in a maybe neighboring LEGO city. And what I'm doing right now in order to connect this bay part with the rest of the city is adding a rope in order to get onto the dock. My thought process for that was that it might be a bit too suspicious for boats to normally anchor at the harbor, and then obviously the mafia can't directly carry large boxes of money onto boats that are currently stationed in the harbor, and therefore the entire operation has to be a bit more secret. This is another guy who's currently climbing up onto the rocks. This makes it a bit more obvious for the viewer from the outside to get an idea of the entire story that's going on. As you also might know by now, the police in my city is also bribed, and therefore a police officer is guarding the operation right there behind that bush. I'll come back to the mafia story in just a bit, but before that I also want to focus on something else I was constantly talking about: the interiors of my buildings. And today I want to start with the first building that finally gets an interior. It's this restaurant right in front of the harbor, and first of all, this is something I have to do with every single building I'm adding an interior to. I'm tiling the floor because I hate empty studs, although you can see a few studs remaining in between the tiles, and this is in preparation for all the interior I'm adding next. First of all, I'm starting with a sink in between the two windows. This is obviously the entire kitchen area with a few plates stacked in the corner, and then the central piece of the kitchen, the stove with an added grill next to it. And what I'm also adding right there are these glass panels in order to prevent oil from splashing out and maybe even hurting a customer. This is the cook right there. And then focusing on the rest of this restaurant, I'm adding these normal basic reddish brown chairs with 4 studs attached beneath them as the legs. The tables are also tiled because I thought this was a nice combination. Having 2 similar tilings, once for the floor and then for the tables as well, simply makes it look more finished. And then once again, as I've mentioned earlier, I don't like having studs remaining. A few more waiters, cooks and customers are placed throughout the restaurant. And with that, we finally finished the interior for that restaurant right there. This is something that really started to bother me, having that front building still empty, and therefore I'm really pleased having that done. I told you at the beginning of the video that I wanted to focus on storytelling, and therefore I'm now adding more small stories throughout the city, with these guys right there who are currently having a pizza break and ordering much more pizza from the guy who's currently delivering it down to the harbor. Then some of you in the comments wanted me to add lifesavers along the harbor, so I've done that as well. And then I also had this empty area behind the restaurant we've just built earlier still remaining, and therefore I've decided to add a small basketball court right there, with this small orange stud being the basketball itself, because I didn't have an original Lego basketball. Might add that at some point because they do exist in fact. And then behind that building, simply a few guys are currently playing basketball. With that being finished, before showing you the big surprise of the video today, I think we have to take a look at everything we've built so far. Starting in this corner, some of you also commented that I should add a small cave at water level, and I'll definitely do that at some point on this side. But what I first of all have to do is modify the entire rock face, because I need to get the rocks further out in order to then integrate the cave. Otherwise it would look a bit too much like steps from platform to platform. This is the danger I'm also currently having when building. I'll definitely continue working on these small side stories that aren't related to the Mafia story, because this is what brings life into the Lego City, with these construction workers, for example, eating their pizza. And then to our main part, or the second main part of this update, let's once again take a look in this building right here. I gotta admit, it looks a bit like a chessboard because the contrast of the dark red almost looks like black at the moment. But my main goal was, and I'll take off the other two roofs as well for this right now, my main goal was to have all these three buildings in front right here with a full interior, in order to first of all be able to take off the roofs, and then also if the roofs are placed on and at some point I've added lighting inside, then it's important for these buildings right here to have a full interior. I also promised to show you something else, which is the day-night mode for the future Lego Museum. And I can't show that in this location because my brother is working on that project. Therefore, I'll quickly have to visit him. I'll see you in 4 hours. Okay, so these are the lights my brother and I have been working on. These are these giant stage lights you also have in clubs and so on. And now my brother has programmed a day-night mode, a bit faster than it would usually be in the Lego City. And I'll now turn off the lights and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, so I've switched off the lights, and now this is what the normal daylight would look like in the Lego City. And now let me start the program. In the next 2 seconds or something, the sunset should then start. And then you can also, now it starts, you can also see how the color changes to a sort of violet, reddish sort of color. Although I gotta say, on the camera, it doesn't look the same as in real life. And now this is what the night would then look like, probably a bit darker. And now I'm of course adding lighting in my city, and then all the street lanterns, the lights in the houses start to go on and then switch off again. So there's a bit of action. And then now this is the sunrise once again, everything much faster than it will eventually be in the city. And this is then back to daylight once again. So I think this should give you a rough idea of what we're working at the moment, my brother and I. Obviously, this entire day-night mode is already in preparation for the future Lego Museum and the new Lego City layout. Although I shouldn't say new Lego City layout, but extended Lego City layout. What I've currently built will be the core of the Lego City, and then towards the edges where I'm currently building, this is then the area that will be extended. I gotta admit, I'm running a bit behind schedule at the moment when it comes to moving the Lego City into the future Lego Museum and so on, because I was ill at the beginning of the year, which was a bit unfortunate. But what should nonetheless happen is that during the course of this year, we're at least planning on partially opening for a few days every now and then. And besides that, obviously the main goal is to extend the Lego City, extend the Wild West mock as well, build the Star Wars room, and get them to grow even faster. So with that being said, I'll try my best to upload as much as possible in between moving the Lego City and working on the Lego Museum and so on. But for now, that's it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again in the next one.